he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception will be worse than the first. You have a guard of soldiers, Pilate told them. Go and make it as secure as you know how. They went and secured the tomb by setting a seal on the stone and placing the guard. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to view the tomb. There was a violent earthquake because an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and approached the tomb. He rolled back the stone and was sitting on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing was as white as snow. The guards were so shaken by fear of him that they became like dead men. The angel told the women, "Don't be afraid, because I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has risen just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples. He has risen from the dead, and indeed he is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Listen, I have told you." So departing quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, they ran to tell his disciples the news. Just then Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." They came out, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus told them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and they will see me there." As they were on their way, some of the guards came into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. After the priest had assembled with the elders and agreed on a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money and told them, "Say this: his disciples came during the night and stole him while we were sleeping. If this reaches the governor's ears, we will deal with him and keep you out of trouble." They took the money and did as they were instructed, and this story has been spread among Jewish people to this day.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. In asking for the body of Jesus, what risk is Joseph taking with Pilate and the Sanhedrin? Of course, the Sanhedrin is the Jewish council of elders that would meet. It was a very important body. There were 70 of them, and they were. You wanted to be on the Sanhedrin. You know, if you were a Jewish rabbi or a priest, that was kind of something you always aspired to be on. And it was very political, as you can imagine. And they were definitely not in favor of Jesus. There were a few people that did speak out. Can you remember any names? One in particular that was on the Sanhedrin that Nicodemus. That's right. Yeah. Back earlier in John, when Nicodemus came to Jesus at night, if y'all remember that, talking to him, and he spoke up, and spoke in Jesus' favor. And in fact, Matthew doesn't tell us, but over in, I think it's Luke's gospel, you find Nicodemus joining Joseph and helping bury Jesus' body. So Joseph wasn't alone. Would have needed help with that stone, rolling that stone. And it may have been more than just the two of them. It may have hired somebody else as well, because I hear those things can be very, very heavy. But what do you guys think? In asking for the body, what kind of risk do you think Joseph is taking?
Probably their own lives.
Yeah. You're kind of putting a bullseye on your back, identifying with a revolutionary, supposedly, that Jesus was.
It's kind of an undeniable position after the fact, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't go back. Everybody knows you did that.
That's right. Yeah. And if you meant to do it in secret, here it is.
Yeah.
Word got out.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he didn't seem to care. He was fine with it. And it's interesting that it was a new tomb, cut out of the rock.
Mm-hmm.
And this would have been, very pricey. Joseph was a person of means, and to take his own personal grave that probably was prepared for him, and offer it to Jesus was an amazing demonstration of love and a risk. By posting the guards at the tomb, do the leaders really believe Jesus will rise again?
No.
Or do they think that the disciples will steal the body? Or do they fear something else? And why?
They think the disciples are going to steal the body. They could fear something else. But they didn't believe in him. They never believed in him, and they didn't believe he was going to rise again. So they figured somebody else was going to take the body. Yeah. So,
I don't know. I think they'd heard the rumors, They were just a little afraid.
What if? Maybe
Yeah.
Just
maybe.
what if he really can do that?
Yeah.
wow.
Well, I think the guard that said at the end, he truly was the Son of God. Like those kind of things maybe were rippling through the community,
Yeah.
those recollections.
Yeah, you're right. The soldier at the crucifixion site, after he saw all that happened, truly, he is the Son of God. So, yeah.
Wasn't there 16 of them? Roman gold.
Some have speculated there could have been up to that many. I've heard anywhere from 4 to 16.
But why would you post that many
Right.
if you didn't think something was going to happen?
Even 4
Is a lot.
trained Roman guards
Is a lot.
is a lot. These guys, they knew what they were doing. They had complete authority to kill anyone. They had no questions asked. If somebody came up and tried to disturb it, and they could have gotten word spread very fast if there were more people coming.
So but to me, they were more afraid that somebody would steal the body instead of really believing that Jesus would rise. Sure, there was one or two who did and everything, but a lot of them didn't think. They were afraid somebody else was going to come and get that body. Yeah, so yeah, they posted the guards and everything to keep somebody else from entering in there and taking the body.
Yeah, I mean, it never happened before. Somebody.
Right, and here I am thinking, well, there's the first time for everything.
And wasn't it under the Roman rule, since that had happened, wasn't they supposed to be killed?
That's the next question. What would it cost the Roman guards if Jesus escaped?
Yeah, they
They're
would have been
alive.
killed.
Their life.
Yeah,
Now what are we going to do?
so
They had every reason to make sure.
if I knew I was going to be killed because somebody or something came missing, I'd be there guarding it myself, I guess.
They had to have been scared senseless. I mean, when that angel showed up,
Yeah. And an earthquake.
Yeah, that right there would scare
Yeah.
me.
yeah, absolutely, the combination of things.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder, I didn't put this question on here, but I was kind of kicking around in my mind. When do you think Jesus actually left the tomb? Because the stone wasn't there to keep him in. And it wasn't rolled away, I'm sorry, to keep him out, let him out. He was gone. When they opened that up, his clothes were just laying there.
So he probably left, or his spirit or whatever probably left even sooner, I mean, they killed his body, but they couldn't kill his spirit to start with, see?
Right, but at this point,
He kept a physical body
he did. This was
because
why he's
the women saw it.
When they recognized him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were other people in Scripture who were raised from the dead, but they still had their physical body like we have. Jesus was different. He received his resurrection body, the one we're going to get someday,
Right.
that was able to come and go.
Maybe it was the physical body they wrapped up, but he was already gone when
Yeah.
they placed him in the
Yeah.
tomb.
I agree.
That's
I think his
possible.
soul, his spirit probably left already. But I'm wondering, when his body, like when he was reunited
With the body.
with the body, you know. Not that it matters, but it just kind of
That
makes
makes
me
you wonder.
curious.
It is one day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and it may have been that morning
yeah.
because he said 3 days, 3 nights, I'll be, you know, in the grave. So that tells me that
But
maybe.
really, he wasn't there 3 nights. Friday, Saturday.
Saturday, Sunday.
He rose Sunday.
Yeah.
Right.
So he wasn't there 3 times.
Yeah.
You're correct. You're correct.
I just thought about that.
You can
days
get
ago.
3 days on the Jewish calendar because they started the day
On Thursday
at
night.
6 p.m.
On Thursday night, they start their preparation
Right.
for Passover.
But tradition says, which started by Catholicism, that he died on Friday. I personally, I back everything up a day. In John's gospel, actually,
That's the only
Tells
way
us.
that 3 nights
Right.
makes sense. Is Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night.
I think the Last Supper was on Wednesday night. He was killed on Thursday afternoon. So he was in the
So
grave Thursday night,
Catholicism
Friday night, and Saturday.
started the Good Friday.
Yep.
Because it doesn't make sense
No.
any other way.
No.
Right.
And John says that he actually, it was the day of preparation that Jesus was killed. Well, the day of preparation is when the lambs are slaughtered. And at
Thursday.
3 p.m. is when the lamb, like the main lamb, is killed by the high priest and offered. And that's when Jesus died at 3 o'clock. And then the lambs were killed and then prepared to be eaten that evening. So the Last Supper wasn't really the Passover. The Last Supper was just that. It was a last meal that he ate.
It was the last
But they were
meal.
preparing to do the Passover the next day. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but it makes sense to me.
It's the only way it makes sense, really.
If you want to get 3 nights out of it, it's the only way it makes sense. So
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Didn't it say somewhere during that afternoon it was dark?
yeah, the sky turned dark.
Dark, okay.
Yeah, 3 in the afternoon.
There you go.
Yeah. And then it also, now what some people counter with is Matthew, Mark, and Luke's account. They talk about how he had to be taken down before the Sabbath began. But the 14th day of Nisan is Passover Day, and it is considered a high holy Sabbath. No matter what day on the calendar it falls, it is considered a Sabbath. So the week Jesus died, there would have been 2 Sabbaths. You would have had a Sabbath day on Friday and Saturday. Then Sunday. I hope I'm not confusing y'all. But I've done a lot of thinking on this over the years. I've kind of got to be careful who I talk to about it because some people get upset. It's
Yeah.
Good Friday. You know, he died on Friday. That's fine. I mean, he died. That's the most important thing. But, you know, he did say for 3 days and 3 nights, just like Jonah was in the belly of the fish, so will the Son of Man be. So, y'all think I'm off my rocker?
No.
No, because it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it all
I mean,
makes
I'm sure
sense.
there's been conversations about it because people are looking for errors in the Bible. So
Right.
I'm sure it's been pulled apart and debated
Right.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. F. LaGard Smith was the first writer that introduced me to that. I was always struggling with it and questioning it, and then his the narrated study Bible, which is the Bible in chronological order. And F. LaGard is a Church of Christ guy. He taught at Lipscomb for a long time. He was a lawyer, and he is the first one who wrote, and it's in that Bible, his idea on this. And when I read that, I'm like, yes, finally, like that
Somebody
makes sense,
Right.
Yeah, like it, check, you know,
Yeah.
like it. But again, you know, it's not wrong to call it Good Friday or celebrate it. But
Well, it fits the calendar better for us.
that's right.
That's what matters.
Instead of Good Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's go on number 4. Who visits the tomb first?
the Marys?
Yeah, the Marys.
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene and the other Mary.
And they were weeping.
That's right, Mary and Mary. And by the way, the day before, or not the day before, a couple of days before, when Joseph and Nicodemus took the body, guess who followed them?
Mary and Mary Magdalene.
Mary and Mary.
Yeah.
It said
Mary's.
back that verse 61 of chapter 27, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. So all this was happening. One of the arguments against the resurrection, skeptics say, is that, well, they went to the wrong tomb.
No, they didn't.
Oh my goodness.
No, they did not go.
Why were
and-
the guards there? Why was the stone there? Why was the
Yeah.
angel just sitting there?
Right.
Hey boys, what y'all doing this morning? You know?
And not only that, the women were there a couple of days before.
Yes.
They knew which tomb it was.
Right.
They're not going to get lost. They're not going to, you know. So,
They're not going to have a senior moment.
no.
Yeah.
But you know, in that it also says that if they, when Pilate was trying to explain rolling the stone, he says, but he was, if that happens, we'll be worse off than we would at first.
Yes. The last deception will be worse than the first. Yeah. So they think he's a deceiver. You know, there's no way he's telling the truth, but if he's really stolen from the tomb, we're in trouble. Because people will think that he arose.
And then we're really going to look bad.
We're going to look bad. So we'll spread this rumor. That, interestingly, had been passed on for probably at least 30 years. We think Matthew was written about 30 years later after the account. It was kind of interesting, the formation of the Bible. A lot of the early followers of Jesus thought that he was going to come back anytime. Even Paul's writings, Paul seems to anticipate the return of Jesus. But when that didn't happen right away, they started, we better write this down.
Yeah.
We want this information to be passed on to the next generation. And obviously, guided by the Holy Spirit, they were able to do that. But, and aren't we grateful? Because
Yeah,
we
right.
wouldn't have,
That's right.
we wouldn't have these stories.
We
And,
wouldn't-
and-
we would
and
not
some
know
people say,
anything.
well, 30 years later, Matthew would have forgotten a bunch of stuff, or they would have. No, they're not.
Yeah.
We remember
That's right.
vividly what happened 30 years ago.
Not only that, but they had the Holy Spirit guiding them
Right.
and having them write what they wrote and everything.
And you're talking about strong emotions attached to those memories as well, which makes them more set. You know?
Exactly. And Matthew being there in person, the tax collector when he was called. Mark's gospel, we actually believe Peter wrote it, or Peter was dictating to Mark an account, because Mark was a young man, a young disciple who lived in Jerusalem, and he would not have been in Capernaum and Galilee and all those places. But most people believe Peter was dictating to him in his older age what happened, which makes sense. You would think of anybody, Peter would want to have some thoughts to share about what happened. Okay. How were they feeling on their way to the tomb? What problems do they expect to confront?
I guess they were feeling upset and sad and just about every emotion you could think of, really. Yeah, and they were probably wondering, will he be there or will he be gone? Yeah, so.
Yeah. What emotions did any of you have when you, several of you here have lost a mate? What kinds of things go through your mind?
Different things. I mean,
Yeah.
can't put your finger on one particular thing because there's so many rushing. Why didn't I do this? How come could I done anything different?
Wishing you had more time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't wish this on nobody.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, things went horribly wrong that weekend from what they were expecting. You know, from Palm Sunday to triumphal entry to this
To this.
in 1 week's time. I mean, literally the week before, the Sunday before, it was a parade, and Jesus finally is going to come to the throne. And now they're weeping at the tomb of Jesus. You know, man.
I guess it's like riding a roller coaster. You have your highs, your lows, your highs, your lows. I guess in a way you wonder, well, when will it ever slow down and, you know, just get on a level plane for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
What was something else they were concerned about once they got there?
I would think they were concerned that the guards would run them off, not let them
Yeah,
stay there. You know.
absolutely. Roman guards posted the seal that is on the stone. Will they, if they roll it away, it's going to break the seal, but we need to get in to finish the burial process. They had a bunch of spices with them and herbs to anoint Jesus
Right,
because
with
How would
this-
they roll the stone?
Yeah.
You know, couple of
With
women.
its seal,
You know,
they wouldn't have been able to roll it
They
away
couldn't have rolled it away.
themselves. Uh-uh.
yeah. Will the soldiers help us?
No,
Doubtful.
probably not.
You know, will the disciples help us? They're nowhere to be found.
That's
They're
right.
not here.
They aren't there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they're back hiding out behind locked doors.
yeah.
A lot of questions.
But remember, if it's the Roman guards, what? They know they're going to be dead now.
Yeah.
Duh.
Well,
Yeah.
you're right.
You know, why bother two little ladies coming in? Help yourself. I'm the dead man now.
Yeah.
I mean, wonder what went through their head.
They were smart that they went to the Jewish officials first before going to Pilate. Because Pilate would have just had them killed right then and there. But that's when they went back and concocted the
the
plan
story.
and paid them off. Notice that.
Yeah, paid them to save their own necks.
Yeah.
What a deal.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to pay you to tell this lie.
The first hush money.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Well, so they get there and the angel's there and they're told not to be afraid, which is good.
Yeah. I'm sure
Do you
that
think
calmed
that's
everybody
God the
down.
Father sitting there? And you think that's God the Father sitting there?
Maybe.
Because it's, you know, his face was white, he's shown, his clothing
It sure
was white.
sounds like him, doesn't it, from Revelation and Daniel, the Ancient of Days. I never thought of that before, Sue. I mean, he's called an angel,
But
but
how
an
many
angel
times
is a messenger.
how many times in the Old Testament was he called the angel of the Lord?
That's right.
And it was always
Right.
God the Father. And,
Or
then-
Jesus pre-incarnate.
Or Jesus pre-incarnate.
Yeah.
I
It's a good
mean,
thought.
and one time there was God the Father, Jesus, and the Spirit all shown up at the same place.
Abraham, when they came and ate with him.
When they came with it. It was all three of them.
Yeah, that's right. That puts a new spin on it. No wonder they were paralyzed like that. The only pause I would have, Sue, again, I don't know. The only pause I would have that it was God is that it may have killed them because
They couldn't look.
They couldn't look. It was always Jesus that they could see, but he would always have to protect, you know, like back in the Old Testament. Moses wanted to see God face to face. And
He couldn't.
it's like, I'm sorry, you know, I allowed that, you would be gone. Because you're not in your glorified body yet to be able to behold God in all of his majesty. But I don't know, Sue. I could be wrong on that. I'm just thinking here. How did they think? I can't read. How do you think they felt when they left the tomb? And then as they met Jesus?
But a lot of things going through their mind. Now,
Yeah.
he did say he would rise. Well, the bucket, yeah, he did. He's gone.
Probably excited but scared also.
Yeah.
Or when they met Jesus, though, they got him by the feet and worshipped him and everything, and they were happy and excited.
Yeah.
So,
There's two phrases in here at the resurrection that I want to point out to y'all. Look at verse 7. So the angel speaking to the women, "Go quickly and tell his disciples, he is risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, now that I've told you." And then go to verse 10. Then Jesus said to them, this is after he appears, right, to the women. "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." Do you notice anything? Repeat it twice.
Don't be afraid.
Galilee.
Yep, don't be afraid, and Galilee. Go to Galilee. And then if you jump over to the Great Commission, look there in verse 16. Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted, and he gives the Great Commission. This didn't happen in Jerusalem. This happened in Galilee. So think about it. They would have had to have walked. It's a good 6-7 day walk from Galilee to Jerusalem. They just gotten there. They spent the week in Jerusalem for Passover. Now they're walking 6 days back to the mountain. Which mountain? We're not told. But there really aren't mountains in Galilee other than, like, the main mountain is Mount.
You've been there.
Is it
You're gonna know.
Haran?
Yes, Mount Hermon.
Yeah.
Mount Hermon, where up by Caesarea, remember where Jesus at the foot of the mountain asked Peter, "Who do you say I am?" And that's where the gods, the Canaanite gods, were at. And it very well could be that mountain. And the Transfiguration may very well have happened on that mountain. We're not sure. It's not told. But
I heard a little spin off on that the other day. They were talking about, Peter said, Moses never got to go to the promised land, but on that mount, he was in the promised land.
yes.
And when Peter says, do you want to erect tents? Moses probably thought, I've lived in tents my whole life. Why would I want more
tent
tent now?
I want something better than that.
That's a great point.
Isn't that cool?
That is a great point. I love that. Well then, so let's fast forward. And again, in my mind, growing up, I always thought the Great Commission took place right before what? Sue, what have you thought the Great Commission took place? These words, "Go into all the world and preach again." What did you assume happened right after that?
That he ascended.
He ascended. He
did.
ascended in Jerusalem.
He did it in Galilee.
John tells us it's in Jerusalem. He's in Galilee here. So the Great Commission happened way before his ascension happened. And then for 40 days, Jesus spends with his disciples, Acts tells us, before he went back to God in his ascension. So Jesus now walks back to Jerusalem 6 days, right? And teaching them and talking to them. It would have been beautiful because all the places they went through would have been in their minds, like the 3 years of ministry with Jesus, and just soaking up that time. And they eventually make their way all the way back, to Jerusalem, where he ascends. But there's a lot of traveling going on that we miss, when we read this. So, all right, that wasn't even in here. That was just free for y'all.
Cost you nothing.
Cost you nothing. You're probably like, "Mark, would you just move out here?
Okay.
We don't really care."
Yeah, we want to know.
Okay, then they met Jesus, and oh my word, that must have just been a moment, huh?
It must have been.
Why did Jesus appear to these women before he appeared to his own apostles?
They were more faithful.
Yeah, but they were also going back to the tomb to see if he was there, though. The apostles and them were in hiding. But those two women wanted to go and find out for themselves, is he still there?
Well, they were going to finish the burial, right?
You're right, they were going to finish that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
and everything. But the apostles thought,
Yeah, the
no,
apostles
not
were-
me. I'm
the
hiding.
disciples
I
were
don't want to
gone.
be killed or anything. So, yeah.
He really honors their faithfulness, their commitment
Yeah.
to, bless Jesus, to finish the burial process. They were taking a risk, themselves to do this, but they were willing to do it. Jesus didn't have to appear to them, but he does. And I also think it's because, I talked about it Sunday, but do you remember about women's testimony in a court of law? What back at that time period?
It didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
No, in both the Greco-Roman Empire and in ancient Judaism, a woman's testimony was either not valid or suspect. They might go ahead and call her in, but it wasn't guaranteed that they would listen to her. But yet, these women become the first eyewitness testimony to the resurrection. I love it.
Right there, Jesus or God, they elevate the women to a whole new level.
Yes. A level they'd never experienced before. Yeah. In light of Matthew 4:10, what is the significance of the fact that they worship Jesus? Let's go back to Matthew 4:10 and see what that says. Catherine, what do you got there?
Then said Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Matthew chapter 4, verse 10.
Yes, remember this is the temptation of Jesus, and Satan has just told Jesus, if you'll bow down to me and worship me, I will give you this. But
Give you the whole world.
who is the only one deserving of worship?
God.
God or Jesus?
Yeah.
And what is Jesus allowing back here in Matthew 28, verse 9. Danny, what does Matthew 28:9 say?
And as they went to tell his disciples, behold, Jesus met them, saying, All hail. And they came and held him by the feet and worshipped him.
Does he tell them, get up, don't worship
No,
me?
it's saying it's all right for women to worship or anybody to worship because everybody should worship God. Yeah. He has put women on an equal plane with men. Yeah.
Do you think they grabbed his feet because they were afraid to, out of fear or out of reverence, to worship face to face? But that's why they grabbed his feet.
Probably just out of sheer emotion and humbleness. That's kind of a natural response that people do when they're in front of somebody who's very powerful, is they bow down.
Bow down.
They get on their knees. Especially the ancient people. We don't do that today. We maybe observe them, shake our head or whatever. But back then, they would, as Danny would say, they'd get down. In fact, Bethlehem is where the first Christian church building was erected by Emperor Constantine's mother. She picked that spot, and it's still there. It was built in the 300 AD. It's the oldest church building in the world. And to get into the church building, guess what you have to do?
You have to bow down.
And you have to bow down. And do you know why you have to bow down? Because the door is this big.
Oh, the doors are low. It ain't high door.
No, they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
So for you to walk in, you had to bow down and give, your allegiance to God, to Christ.
Right.
That kind of like, it's
your
kind of
pride.
like going through the cellar door back home where I live. It ain't got a high door. It's on the side of the house, but you really got to squat down and go in like a duck to get down in that cellar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sure do. You're going to bang your head.
If you ain't careful, yeah.
I had to really get down when I went there with my dad.
Yeah.
You went in that church?
I did.
How big is it?
It's big.
Oh, bigger than auditorium?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's probably double the size of this. Of course, it's been added on over the years. The original one probably wasn't that big. And you go up to the front of it, I think they call it the nave, and you have some stairs. You go off like a door here, and you go down to the basement, and that's where the cave is that they believe Jesus was born. So they built the church building over top of what they believe was the burial site of Christ. They don't know, but
Yeah.
Money making fun.
it is that.
Yeah.
Okay, how might the guards' report differed from the women's report?
They're probably not going to tell they saw an angel sitting there. Said Bruce.
Probably not. Yeah.
I wonder if the fact that the women couldn't give testimony protected them, because the guards might have killed them, because they'd have a different story if they were men.
That's
Wow.
That's right.
That's a great observation, Carol.
and it was their protection. It was their way of being protected.
Huh.
Wow.
Maybe.
No, that's a twist I hadn't thought about before. That's what I love about Bible study. You just are able to think about things and approach them from a different angle. Why would the chief priest and others prefer to believe the falsified story?
Well, because he said he would rise, and that would make him Jesus. That would make him a son of God.
That changes everything.
Yeah.
It's no longer business as usual.
Yeah. And they were wrong the whole time. And they took drastic measures in their ignorance,
Yes. Yeah, that's right. They would have to admit that they were wrong. Boy, that's hard for people in positions of power to admit. Not that we ever see that in government.
No.
It's hard to say I'm sorry or I was wrong. They would, if they didn't believe it, the fact that Jesus was alive, then they could just continue doing what they've been doing all along. And that was more comfortable
Yeah.
than to change.
Well, that's right. They didn't want to get out of their comfort zone.
Right.
Well, and maybe they didn't want to, I started to say, upset more people than the ones that were upset already. I ain't talking about just the common people who were upset because he was crucified and everything, but I'm talking about other people, Well, we don't want to get them upset or anything, or they might strike back at us or something. Yeah.
Yep.
So, go along with the status quo or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did the reality of Jesus' resurrection dawn upon you when you first kind of understood the fact that Jesus arose? He died for you and that he arose from the grave. How did that reality, what did that do to you? And were you more of a quick believer or a slow doubter? I know it's getting a little personal, but it's getting to the end. It's application time.
I don't think I ever doubted him.
You raised in the
I was raised in the church.
Yeah.
That's all I ever knew.
I don't remember a time where I had a moment of realization. It just was part of my story, you know.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a gradual part, something that you, yeah. How about you, Danny?
But it hit me like a touch of moon.
He hit you like what?
Touch of moon? Shine. That's how it hit.
Whoa.
I knew where he was going with that.
I went for the punch and the cookies for Vacation Bible School. Turned totally around.
Yeah.
I had good teachers. So Mama took me to church. Mama said, go. We went.
But you didn't believe it, or you just went to appease her? Did you just go to appease your mother so you didn't get in trouble?
To start with. And while she was in, they were doing the main service, I had the keys to the car, so I would hijack the car and go drive around. So, you know,
How old were you when you it became real to you? When it,
about 12.
okay. Yeah. Did you, I thought there's a period of time that you kind of backslid though, wasn't there?
Wasn't kind of backslid.
Okay, that's what I was
definitely
thinking.
did.
And that's what I was thinking of, when it really when it hit you to come back and take it seriously.
Well, when I was 40 years old in 1988, I was sitting at the house in front of the wood stove. It was one of my favorite things to do. And I heard this voice say, I'm tired of waiting.
I'm tired of what?
Waiting. And I thought, you know, chemically assisted flashback.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
And then I said to myself, who is it? And the voice said, you know who it is. So boy, from that day forth, so it's like he plugged me into an outlet.
Wow.
That was your road to Damascus experience.
Yeah.
You saw the light
Yeah, I did.
with a little assistance from Jack.
Yeah.
No, grateful, Danny. Grateful that God
Wow.
woke you up.
Yeah, he did. Because my mother had died 8 years earlier, and I was low as I could be,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
grinning like a mule eating sawbra.
How would you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, from that day to this, it's been, I'm having trouble finding the right word to describe it. It's been marvelous.
Yeah.
But it took him a while to get rid of my tongue. I needed about 2 foot lopped off of it
Yeah.
to begin with. And so it was a work in progress for quite a while.
Right. It's one thing I've noticed about how Jesus works. You know, the healings would be like that, instantaneous. But when it comes to our character, it takes time. There's not a magic
Lifetime.
pill that you just take one day, and we got to have a lot of patience with ourselves and with others. So,
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble having patience with
no
others.
comment.
I'm sure Sue would like to share about it. Why don't you go ahead and tell them what happened last week?
It's okay. You learn.
You're growing, Bruce.
You are.
You are growing.
I'm pacing at everything except behind the wheel. So last week, we were going to Harding Valley. Me, Sue, Helen, and little Betty. Well,
Traffic was bad.
Sue had her
GPS.
GPS. And I thought, my goodness, what are you doing? You've got us on the wrong road. So I said, right here, I've been down this way. So I zip it up the ramp to get on Mississippi. And guess what?
The parking lot.
That's right. And I got to eat crow. And this one, and Sue, and little Betty. Sue was really enjoying it because we didn't go her way. So we finally got to Chick-fil-A. Sue said, we ain't getting out. We're going to go through the drive-thru and you got to cram it. I'm not going to be late to church.
It was
I had
6:40.
15
No,
minutes to eat.
it was 6 o'clock.
And we
Or
had,
6:10.
well, we got there. And Sue said, if you'd listened to me, we'd have came out on this road and came up this way, and it'd been so much better. Instead of you're impatient and know-it-all. So, I'll listen to her next time. She wins one.
Oh my goodness. How would you? Sorry. How would you argue against skeptics' ideas that the disciples stole the body, that Jesus only swooned on the cross? That's the idea that he didn't die, he fainted, but then he came back to his senses later. He woke up in the tomb. Yeah. Or that the resurrection was a legend that caught on. Well, what would you argue? What would you say about those?
Well, how would the disciples stow the body if the guards were there, the stone was there,
Right.
and them not see it?
Right.
And how do you explain the blood and water when they pierced his side on the cross if he wasn't dead?
He'd be in a little pain if you touched that side.
Yeah.
Well, and even if he had revived, if he still would have just died in the tomb if he couldn't get out, you know.
Suffocated.
And if he was, yeah, if he was locked in and the guards were guarding it.
When they wrapped, one of the Gospels says 75 pounds of spices already. So you lay spices, wrap, spices, wrap, spices, wrap, all the way around, head to toe.
He couldn't have moved.
Right.
Couldn't have breathed.
Right.
There's no way.
At full strength, you couldn't get out.
Not after hanging on a cross for
And a spear being thrust up in your heart and lungs, water and blood flowed out.
Yeah.
I mean, just to make sure. I mean, he was dead already, but just to make sure. Yeah. I mean,
And we didn't know how long he was up there after they did it. I mean, was it an hour, 2, 3?
Right.
well, they had to get him
they had to
How
get
long-
him, they had to
how
get him
long?
down before dark.
dark.
Before 6, they had to get him buried. So it was probably pretty soon after that. They also, I don't know if y'all have heard the theory, the twin theory. Some people think Jesus had a twin,
When
Wow.
and the twin died, and the other twin was walking around saying, I was the one. Yeah, come on. There's so many things about that make no sense at all.
Somebody
Well,
saw
the
us.
disciples would have known that if that was true. And they took this to their death, you know, like,
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
and his siblings would definitely have known, and you know they did come around
Right.
at the end.
Yeah. Well, our time's about up, guys. There's a whole list. There's like, I don't know, 10 or 12 different ideas that skeptics throw out, but every one of
That
them.
twin roost and stuff is so far fetched. It don't make sense.
I'm not hearing
Really.
that before.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a pretty wild one.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, when you're
So-
brainstorming, every idea is good, right?
And are you gonna flip the coin? All right, who gets the crucifixion?
Right. Which one will
Yeah.
volunteer?
I'll play the resurrection. You get, you know. Oh man. Well, thank you all.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Love being together.
It's good.
Those of you at home, glad you joined us tonight. We love you.